Hello, hello. It is the one and only 5D transformations. And in this video, I wanted to talk to you about two personality types. I want to compare the two. It is the INTP and the INTJ. Now, both types, they share a lot of similarities, but they're actually quite different. They're actually very different, what people don't understand. So the first thing to start off with is even though INTPs and INTJs share a very similar demeanor, a lot of that has to do with them being introverted and thinking dominant types, which means generally they're pondering within themselves or just very present. They look like they're thinking or like they're brainiacs, but what you'll actually find is they tend to be very present, just going with the flow. Um, but you'll notice is they're doing it in two separate ways in their inner world. But from an external standpoint, you see both of the types, and you're like, they can come off very similar. You know, so the first thing to understand is INTPs. They have the complete opposite functions of INTJs. Like INTPs and INTJs, they are very similar in that they're intuitive, they're thinking dominant, but they have two different types of intuition, two different types of thinking, two different types of feeling, and two different types of sensing. Okay. So that's what's so interesting about the two. So they're actually quite different in their internal world. So let's begin. Let's start with the first difference. Both types, obviously, they're IN types, meaning they're intuitive. So when we talk about intuition, here's how the two intuitions are different. So they both are intuitive, so they can get along very well. They're both very good with ideas. They can project future possibilities. They can see the bigger picture to some perspective. But extroverted intuitives, I'm sorry, just to be clear, INTPs have extroverted intuition. INTJs have introverted intuition. So to clarify it and make it simple, INTPs have a lot more random ideas going on. INTPs are much more dealing with a lot of different ideas. Of course, they can hone in on one idea, uh, more significantly, but what you'll find is they tend to hone in on one specific idea. Oh no, I'm sorry. INTPs tend to hone in on a variety of different ideas, whereas INTJs hone in on one. INTJs generally like to focus on one idea at a time. So INTPs, if they're friends with INTJs, like I happen to know two girls that are very, very close friends, almost like best friends. One's an INTJ, one's an INTP. And they can share their ideas with one another, but the INTP generally will bring one idea that it cares about the most to the INTJ, and the INTJ will help them out. But INTPs internally are dealing with a variety of different ideas. Um, so that's how their intuition is a little different. INTPs can be a little bit more zany, a little bit more um, interested in new possibilities, whereas a INTJ will much rather, they're interested in different possibilities as well. And I guess that's where I could say they're very similar. Both are open to different ideas, but what you'll find is from an intuitive standpoint, INTJs, they like to hone in on an idea, whereas INTPs can kind of dabble with different ideas a little more. But they both value ideas, very intelligent, um, you know, but here's where it begins to vary. I mean, get a little different between the two. So their intuition, that's the similarity and difference. And then when it comes to the thinking next, they have two different types of thinking. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about the thinking element, right? When we talk about the thinking aspect, we talk about the thinking aspect of this. I'm like, let me move this around, get a little closer. All right. When we talk about the thinking, INTPs, they have introverted thinking. So this is where they can have a very, they like to go with the flow of things. They like to follow linear processes. And this is where INTPs can show up as overthinkers more than INTJs, because INTJs, even though they have extroverted thinking, second, they're constantly pinging from other people. They're uh, gaining clarity by getting thoughts and different perspectives in order to come to the best decision. Or they'll factor in what is the most efficient thing to do to get to where I want to go. INTPs aren't necessarily factoring in efficiency a lot of the time, which can make INTPs a lot of the time follow linear pursuits out of just wanting to stay on track with whatever they were already doing. Like INTPs are the type that want to just keep doing whatever it is that they're doing because there's a familiarity, um, and they like to follow processes one step at a time. So when you see that they're following processes one step at a time, where INTJs are different is they will veer off from the linear process if they feel as though it's not efficient. So that's where INTPs can be more consistent than INTJs when it comes to following through on certain tasks. But INTJs can find themselves being more able to move up the chain or move up the ladder a lot quicker because INTPs can find themselves investing a lot of time into pursuits that may not pay out as much, where they can be spinning their wheels because they are doing something for the sake of this is what they think, this is what they've already been doing, and they will continue it. So introverted thinkers are much more linear in that regard. Also, what you'll notice is INTPs much more build identity around their career. They're much more duty oriented. Like a lot of their self, um, you know, image is tied to their career, their work, what they're doing a lot of the time. Whereas a lot of the time, INTJs will, so because they have introverted feeling third, they're more so tapped into their internal feelings. What's authentic, what feels right for me. You know what I mean? So that's something that's so because INTJs have that introverted feeling, they generally want to find jobs that give them some kind of purpose, some kind of value internally where they feel aligned at some capacity. They have the ability to just do a job for the sake of doing the job, but you'll notice that that wear and tear will affect them a lot more. But INTPs, they are the types where they'll just do whatever they have to do in terms of their duties and careers. But that's where they differ from INTJs as well, as INTPs can find themselves being a lot more disconnected to their internal feelings, um, and that's where INTJs being connected to introverted feeling, they can be a little bit more connected to how they feel internally. But both have a propensity to be disconnected. INTJs a lot of the time block out how they feel and let their thinking decisions take charge. And both types can fall into a scenario where they disregard their feelings for so long that it ends up imploding or that they end up breaking down or feeling very disconnected because they're out of touch with how they feel. So both types need to check in, but it's a little bit easier for INTJs. Now, on the flip side, INTPs are much more willing to see things through to get to the other side and trust the process, whereas INTJs generally are the types to, if it's not efficient, if they're not seeing a return, if they don't see things moving upward, they can move around a little more. That's that extroverted thinking. Now, in terms of the feeling, INTPs have feeling fourth. Uh, INTJs have a third. So INTJs have a little bit more of the feeling, but what you have to understand is INTPs have extroverted feeling fourth. So their feeling is much more focused on other people. They're much more focused on making sure everyone else is okay versus trying to worry if they're okay. Whereas INTJs are more so concerned about how they feel over if everyone else is okay. And what you'll find is extroverted feeling is actually the second to last function that INTJs have, period. It's the seventh out of the eighth. So INTJs have a very conflicting experience in life, having to understand how to connect with people and gain likability and give to other people, and being selfless, because they naturally have that extroverted thinking, which is saying, what is the return? What is the return? What am I getting? What am I doing this for? And because INTJs have introverted feeling, they can take things personally a lot more. So INTPs can let a lot of things slide, whereas INTJs can hold on to things and take things personal, which makes it that much more harder for them when it comes to dealing with people. Because, little things can really, that might appear as little things, can be big things to the INTJ. They do not tolerate disrespect at any level. It's a big deal to them, and it can definitely trigger them. So what you'll find is, even though INTJs, have more feeling that they have access to than INTPs. INTPs tend to be more of the social type between the two, not social in terms of going out and meeting friends and stuff, but more so they can go with the flow. But what's funny, the reason why INTJs though also in a lot of cases can have more friends than INTPs is because they have extroverted thinking. They are interested in what other people are thinking. They like to get other people's perspectives. That's how extroverted thinking learns. So INTJs are always learning through conversations and interacting, but they're going to interact with people who they either have to interact with because they're at work or something, or people that they feel are valuable enough to talk to. INTPs, on the other hand, they're very much to themselves as well. But if you're in a work environment, if you deal with them on a duty level, then you begin to really build a bond. But that's where they both are very similar. Both types are to themselves. They're not very social. They both deal with social, they generally are going to have some areas of social difficulty. They both get drained very easily. But what you'll find is the INTP is more concerned on, oh, am I coming off weird? Do people like me? Am I, you know, how am I in the environment? Do the people feel comfortable? Whereas INTJs are going to be more so focused on, how do I feel right now? It feels awkward. I don't like the environment. How long do I have to be here? It's all like efficiency. Like, oh man, how long do I have to be here? I'm tired. So both can stress out and be in their head. So that's that. And then finally, they both have sensing as lower functions, but the difference is INTPs have introverted sensing and INTJs have extroverted sensing. So because of that, INTPs go to the past a lot more. They tend to follow routines, especially when you think of the fact that they have introverted thinking. So INTPs can get caught into productive patterns or unproductive patterns, and they can get locked in them because that repetition, doing the same thing, even if it's not healthy, they're just used to it. Whereas INTJs are much more willing to jump ship, as I talked about. They have the ability to kind of jump ship, but extroverted, INTJs, the thing about them is they have extroverted sensing. So they can be very present, and it can be hard for them to make changes because they're so present. And because of that, they have that element to them that is very moment to moment. They're in their environment. They have intuition, but their intuition is much more focused on now and what's going to happen next. And a lot of that has to do with they're always paying attention to everything in their environment right now, which makes them very much more present. Whereas INTPs are not really in the present. They're not in the room and just observing what's in the environment. They're thinking of ideas here and ideas there. And so they can be a little bit out of the sensory, and that's why they have to return back to whatever it is that they are familiar with to be grounded. Whereas INTJs, they just want to, they still have that extroverted sense. They want to see new things. They want to experience new things. They want to watch new shows. They want to eat at a new restaurant. They want to still have new experiences. The INTP, on the other hand, is a little bit more disconnected to the sensory environment. And that makes them a little bit more brainy in a different way. They're more brainy, like they're all in their head. INTJs are more brainy, like they just want to be on their own and thinking and doing things on their own versus them actually having a bunch of ideas in their head. That's the difference. INTJs may look like they got a bunch of ideas in their head, but you'll be surprised is it's very simple. It's very present. And when they are delving into an idea, they're deep diving, but it's quick. It's a lot quicker. INTPs are going to think about their idea, juggle around a little bit more before they make a decision. So these are great types as friends. Like INTJs help INTPs come to decisions. They both can help each other with decision making, and they both are willing to put the smart decision ahead of what makes you feel good. But at the same time, they both can have social challenges. They both can be very isolated, and they both can be very sensitive. Actually, INTPs are sensitive as well in their own way. Um, but I would have to say INTJs are the more sensitive type, which people would be surprised. But what you'll actually be surprised is INTJs are more sensitive than INTPs, but INTPs are more, I would say, self-conscious than INTJs generally. Um, so with that being said, I thank you all for listening, and I will see you in the next video. Make sure to join the website, and make sure to join the free 5D University. I'm gonna start putting some videos in there, so look out for that. And Also, make sure to get the MBTI course. It is officially out. MBTI Magic is out now. Go get that, and I'll see you in the next video. 5D transformations. Let's get it. We're here. Peace.